All right, sneakerheads, sports junkies, and even if you're just a casual fan, welcome to another edition of Sniper Sports, live from the 808 where we shoot you straight. This is Joey, and with me as always is Steven. And this segment we're going to go over some NFL. We had Week 6 pass recently. A lot of things happened. Probably the biggest news of the Week 6 in the NFL season is the injury of Aaron Rodgers. Steven, we mentioned before on the show, 2017 for the NFL just seems to be an injury-plagued season. We've already had a lot of stars, a lot of key parts to their teams go down. We saw J.J. Watt go down and Odell Beckham in the same week. And now Aaron Rodgers got hit late by Minnesota, I believe, and he broke his collarbone on his throwing shoulder.
Yes.
So all indications is that he's going to be gone for the rest of the season. And with that being said, my friend, it really shakes things up in the NFC.
It just shakes things up in my fantasy league since he was my quarterback too. So,
They got off to such a good start, 4-1.
Definitely. Joey, it does, and I think I hate to say it. I hate to always, I don't want to really glorify the quarterback position, but this is why they're so protected. This is why the reason why they're always watched over, you would say, by the NFL.
Right.
And they're the highest paid because, as you can see, no Aaron Rodgers in there. You still have your tight end, your offensive line. It's still not the same team. And I think this is a big hit for Green Bay, and it shakes up everything, I think, in the NFC, as we talked about a little bit earlier, and especially in the NFC North, where I think now it's up for grabs between the two teams, Minnesota and Detroit.
Definitely. In Minnesota, what they showed me this last weekend with, is it McKinnon, number 21 for Minnesota, that running back?
I think
he
so.
took the place of Dalvin Cook after Cook went down with a season-ending injury.
Other one.
Minnesota looked real strong, and we already know about their defense, a proven defense. And I don't care if it's Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater, or Sam Bradford. All those guys have been getting it done. Of course, Bridgewater's been out for over a year, but Sam Bradford, he played an excellent Week 1. Case Keenum, believe it or not, has the highest quarterback rating on third downs. I believe he's a 129 rating on third downs and against the blitz this year. I just heard that statistic this year. And that, along with their coach and their defense, is a reason Minnesota, in my opinion, will probably come out the victor in that division now that Aaron Rodgers is gone for the year.
Not going to disagree with you on that one, Joey.
Detroit, we know they're still a strong team within the division, but that defense, it's young and they do make mistakes. Matt Stafford and the offense, they are pretty good. I still think they win 8-9 games, but I like Minnesota to come on top of that division. Also, with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers being hurt, it really seems to clear the path for the Philadelphia Eagles. I took a look at their schedule, and it looks like they probably have, I don't want to say the easiest road, but the least amount of obstacles. And being that Carson Wentz looks really solid, throwing for over 300 yards in most of his games, they just look like a pretty sound team. And as of now, for the NFC, I like Philadelphia to emerge as one of the top teams. They already are one of the top teams, but going forward here on in, I still like Carolina, Steven. I think they're a good, well-rounded team. Not to panic on that last game. I really thought Cam Newton just made some mistakes where he normally gets it done and pulls out a victory at the last stretch of that game. So it's not time to press the panic button on Carolina. I think they're my number 2 team in the NFC. They're still really strong, and they go as Cam goes. The Atlanta Falcons. I don't know what you saw, but I was highly disappointed in that game.
So, definitely.
Highly disappointed. I mean, it looked like revisiting the Super Bowl of last year, right, where they're up at halftime and then they get murdered. Well, that's what happened in this game. Atlanta's at home against Jay Cutler and the Miami Dolphins, up 17-0. They let Miami back in the game, and they ended up losing 20-17. 20 unanswered points in the second half, shut out. Miami gets the W. This is what bothers me with Atlanta, Steven.
I think that's what this whole NFL season has been about. I mean, I can understand where you're going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles. I just don't know anymore. I mean, you looked at, like, so many teams have been up and down.
Right.
1 week, for example, like, who would have thought that the Giants are going to do what they did to the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
You know, I just think you're just seeing a whole lot. You just don't know what to expect.
Without
I mean,
Odell Beckham, who thought?
exactly. And Brandon Marshall. So, I mean, you know, I just think, like, there is no clear cut. I think you can have your favorites like Philadelphia, ANC. I think Kansas City's still a favorite for me. But you look at even somebody where, you know, we talked about preseason. We thought that New England was going to roll. They were going to go 16-0 or 14-2. Where now, like, their division is very competitive with Miami, with Buffalo, with the Jets, with that questionable call. The Jets could have won the game or tied the game.
Oh, my goodness. Did you see that? I mean, as long as I've been watching football, listen, folks, once the ball hits the pylon or even touches the line, it is a touchdown. Now, I saw Malcolm Butler, knock the ball out periodically, but it looked like the receiver regained possession of the ball as he was hitting the pylon. I mean, 9 times out of 10, heck, 10 times out of 10, that's a touchdown. I really feel like the Jets got ripped off. They called it a touchdown on the field. It was reversed. Once again, I've seen this pattern where New England and they seem to get a little bit of help from the officials. I'm just throwing it out there. Watch the pattern.
Definitely, you know, and so that's what I'm saying. Again, Joey, we discussed this on the other segments about how all these players are being injured. I really don't like seeing that at all. But you gotta love what's happening now with the NFL, where every week you don't know what's going to happen. You know, you're looking at a Philadelphia-Carolina game. Carolina's coming off a great win. They're looking strong. Cam is looking strong. And
right.
Philadelphia comes out and does what they do. Denver looking very strong.
Right.
And then they get, you know, pretty much manhandled by the Giants of all teams. You know, Atlanta looking good, and then second half they look bad. You know, in the beginning of the year they looked unstoppable. The way they beat Green Bay, the way they played the first couple games, they looked amazing. It's just, you know, even with Pittsburgh beating Kansas City, I don't really think that's a big deal, but you just gotta enjoy what's happening now in football. I mean, even the Monday night game with Tennessee and Indianapolis.
Oh yeah.
Indy was up, and it wasn't until probably towards the ending of the third quarter where Tennessee took a hold of the game. You gotta love the season. You gotta love, you know, what type of football we're watching, where it's very competitive.
I agree with you there, and everybody has a horse in this race so far at this point of the season. I know what you mean. It's unfortunate because of the injuries, but what's happened as a domino effect to that, it's really shaken things up and made it so close, right? I think we all can agree. We just watched an NBA season last year. We all knew who was going to the finals, right? I mean, there was just no question. It was going to be Golden State and Cleveland. It might even be that again this season, Steven. So that's what I like about the NFL. It's up for grabs after Week 6. We have no idea. I still think Kansas City's the strongest team, and then after that, it's totally up for grabs. You know, and as it was proven this week, they can be beaten. Now Pittsburgh's had their number. Pittsburgh's beaten KC the last 6 games they faced each other, so they kind of had their number. But I'm telling you, if Antonio Brown doesn't make that wild catch towards the end of the game, it might have gone a different way. And I think there's no reason to panic on KC yet. I mean, they just didn't really get their offense going. They didn't get Kelsey involved very much. The running game struggled. Kareem Hunt's had a lot better games, and it was kind of a low-scoring game. But their defense looked solid. Special teams looked good. No reason to panic on KC. I still see them being a strong team going forward throughout this season.
Absolutely, I can agree with you more, Joey. And like I said, I mean, since a toss-up, I think we can have, like how I said earlier, we can have favorites right now. You know, we have favorites in Kansas City and Philadelphia. I do like Philadelphia, like their offense. You know, they picked up Jeffries and Torrey Best, I think it was.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people are coming on. Carson Wentz is looking great.
Zach Ertz is getting a lot of touches this year. The tight end out of Philly.
I still have a problem with their secondary. I think their secondary is their flaw, where if they don't really get the pressure up front, and you know, I've seen it in the preseason and multiple games where, you know, the receivers, they can get open. If they do, that could be a long day for Philly, and that could be what hurts them in the playoffs or throughout the season. I'm not too sure, but
yeah, especially if they're going up against some of those teams who put up a lot of points, like a New England or even a New Orleans.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting. I like I said, I've just enjoyed football this year, the NFL especially, and more than I have in the past years, because it's not so top heavy. I mean, you have your teams that are not involved anymore, like your San Francisco 49ers, your Giants, your Browns, some of these other teams, but everybody else I still feel that they have a shot to win the division or maybe make it the wild card.
Yeah, and I just want to give a couple shout outs this week to some key players who really impressed me. Number one, Adrian Peterson. As y'all heard, he got traded from New Orleans to the Arizona Cardinals very early in the week. And his first game with Arizona, Steven, they got the W. And he ran for 134 yards with 2 touchdowns. Just really, really good to see. I think he didn't even have 100 yards over the first 4 games with New Orleans, or 5 games.
Nope.
So it's good to see that AP was very useful and still had football left in him. I was happy to see that. Another shout I want to give, who we've given a shout out to almost every week on the show, is the young rookie quarterback, Deshaun Watson. I mean, Steven, this kid is leading the NFL in touchdowns, 15 touchdown passes. He's thrown 12 over the last 3 weeks, and he's putting up a lot of points for his team. Houston has to be very happy with their future and their quarterback.
Exactly. Thank you, Chicago, for picking Mark Trubisky first. I think another shout out we have to give is to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Leonard Fournette. I think maybe his physicality has really changed the team in a sense of how he's been able to have so many carries a week. I think he's averaging about 24, 25 carries a week.
He's getting a lot of that workload.
So, shout out to him and what he's doing in Jacksonville Jaguars. Who would have thought that Jacksonville would even have this record right now? I think they're 4-2 maybe, or
they're 3-3 actually.
3-3. I mean, who would have thought they'd be 3-3 right now, right in the mix, yo?
You know what? This defense, we knew this through the draft last year when they drafted a lot of young players, Miles Jack, Jalen Ramsey, etc., on the defensive end, and I think they're just a year ahead. They've surprised me with that defense and the way they run the ball with Fournette. Steven, they remind me much of the Baltimore Ravens back when Jamal Lewis was getting the majority of the carries there. Mm-hmm. And they had that solid defense with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and the boys, etc.
Exactly.
Jacksonville, I don't know. They might be able to get in the playoffs and make some noise. And if nothing else, they're going to make a few other records ugly around there in the league.
Exactly. That's a tough division, AFC South, with Houston being in there, Tennessee and
Jacksonville.
Exactly. So
all 3-3 right now. Looks like the Colts are obviously the loser in that division with Andrew Luck. How's Andrew Luck? Been MIA all year. That's another injury we haven't even spoken about.
I think that's why so many people are worried about Aaron Rodgers, because they've seen the effect that I think Andrew Luck had on his arm and what he's been able to do and how he's progressing. So I think that's why people it's not the same injury, but I think just because it's on his throwing shoulder,
yes,
you never know what may happen. Velocity gone. Chad Pennington, another great example. I think he has some type of similar injury, and he wasn't able to throw the ball downfield.
The same way, you're right.
So it's gonna be
this year has sure been, just as far as key injuries to players, I can't remember a season where we've had more. I mean, this really stands out. Andrew Luck, J.J. Watt, Odell Beckham, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Dalvin Cook. It goes on and on and on.
Exactly.
Tannehill. I mean, everybody just, man, I hope we don't lose anybody else, really. It's been a great year. But going down the stretch here, what teams do you see starting to pull away? And what teams, in your opinion, do you think are going to regress?
To be quite honest, I don't even know. It's going to be tough it's really tough to say that. Like I said, I think Philly is a favorite of mine, and so is KC. But other than that, I don't see any other real favorites to really make a statement other than just those two.
Right. I think Atlanta is who I'm focused on this week. I really want to see how they react to that poor game they had last week, going against the Super Bowl champs. We know what they did to them in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, that's definitely a game I'm going to be paying attention to this week. And also the Monday night game. Philadelphia, we'd be giving them a lot of praise, but the Washington Redskins, in my opinion, Steven, are probably one of the best 3-2 teams in the league. Kirk Cousins has those guys playing ball. I know they missed their receivers from last year, but Washington has been very competitive in every game, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens this Monday night. I believe they're playing in Philadelphia.
I think so.
Okay. But this is a division game, a rivalry game, and it'll be... So those two games I think I'm focused on this week. I want to see the outcomes of those games. Also, I think New Orleans, Drew Brees, how he hung up 52 last week, he's got to get past Green Bay and a Brett Hundley team with Green Bay. Not to say Brett Hundley's terrible. He didn't look that great in his first game with Green Bay, but it just doesn't run the offense like Aaron Rodgers would. right? It's kind of like dancing without music, right? But you just need Aaron Rodgers in there. It makes everything go. He's looked so good this year with his timing, and I don't think Green Bay is going to have that same rhythm with Utley. So I think that Drew Brees in New Orleans, that's another team that should get the W this week.
I think so. I don't think that's going to be too much of a hassle for them to get the W over a Green Bay team whose defense isn't that great as well.
Right.
So turning to our next segment where we talk about some basketball. Opening day was yesterday. Even had some games today, so we'll talk about some of that. And, of course, the Gordon Hayward injury.
Ooh, I don't know if y'all saw that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that next.
All right.